There's many ways to describe Payprop. I must admit, on occasions I've used the word magic.
Payprop is the most important tool we use for our business.
It's far easier and it's less labor and time consuming than what we had previously.
When I set my company up, I knew the first thing I was going to get was Payprop. It was my very first investment. Very first thing I got was Payprop.
The business challenge that led me to start using Payprop was the time wasted in the rent collection process.
The process before Payprop was all manual.
Now, one screen, press of a button, it's done.
We process around about 50 rents on the first of every month. It takes us now between 5 and 10 minutes.
We've got, I think it's probably 70% of our franchises on Payprop, which just gives us that, I think, not just consistency, but that peace of mind as a franchisor that we know our franchisees are transacting on a system that's bulletproof, it's foolproof.
It's so easy to use that when I got married in Greece last year, I sat the morning of the wedding and did all of the payments on my mobile phone. It took literally 2 minutes.
Since I started using Payprop a year ago, our business has doubled.
Since Payprop, our work has been cut in half.
From a fiduciary duty perspective, Payprop has really helped me to sleep at night. Payprop allows me to spend more time with my family.
The support team are an absolute lifeline for me.
It was a huge game changer for us.
I'll never come away from Payprop because it does what I need and I love using it.
Welcome to the REI Talk. It's our weekly webinar brought to you by Real Estate Investor. And today's webinar is sponsored by Payprop. Payprop, where you can collect and you can match rent reports on your entire portfolio in a few clicks. My name is Neil Peterson. I'm the founder of Real Estate Investor, South Africa's leading independent digital real estate platform for over 14 years. And we get for investors, landlords, home buyers, developers, entrepreneurs, and property practitioners. And REI's omni-channel content is delivered by our specialist team of journalists, content specialists, industry and marketing experts, all passionate about serving the South African real estate industry to the REI community of over 300,000 people. So you can connect with REI, thought-leading content and education via the REI Mag website, our digital content platform, which includes podcasts, videos, ebooks, and property guides, and REMAG, our digital interactive magazine, our virtual events, and the REI Spatial Web Metaverse, where multiple users can interact and engage in a 3D computer-generated virtual space. So I'm really excited to be your host and moderator for today's investment webinar. And today's topic is real-time real estate. New directions in residential rental success. So before we get into today's topic, we first got some housekeeping, we've got some announcements. And for the attendees who registered for this webinar, who for whatever reason could not attend today's live webinar or have to leave early, we'll personally email you a link of the webinar recording for you to view on demand at your leisure. Otherwise, you can access the webinar replays on demand under shows on the remag.co.za website. To our audience, we look forward to your participation in today's webinar. Please submit your questions throughout the webinar for us to pose to our resident experts from Payprop today. So how do we pose a question? To do that, you just identify the speaker, you type the question, submit it via the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen anytime during the webinar. And we will specifically answer and deal with all your questions at the end of the webinar discussion during our Q&A panel discussion in the final session. There will also be a poll with multiple choice questions, which will pop up on your screen periodically throughout the webinar. And we encourage you to vote on the poll, select your choice in the tick box, and then click submit. And we'll publish the results live throughout the webinar. And then, of course, CPD points is up for grabs. For attendees who qualify, there will be one non-verifiable CPD point allocated for estate agents and property managers. And please note that this is on application only. And to secure those CPD points, ensure that you please click on the link in the chat box below, fill out the required fields. We will publish it from time to time throughout the webinar, and then you submit the form. Please note that applications do close on Monday, the 29th of November. No submissions after this date will be accepted, and no submissions via email will be accepted. So please note that this process to get your CPD points and your certificate will take up to a month, as they are issued by the Institute of Estate Agents of South Africa. All right, so moving on to our discussion today, real-time real estate new directions in residential rental success. So some of the things that we will be covering today is a property rental market update. We will be discussing the effects of the pandemic on the South African residential rental market, and more specifically, the risk-reward relationship between agents and tenants, amongst a lot of other things. And we welcome your questions and your interaction. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is just do a round robin. I'm going to ask each of our panelists just to briefly introduce themselves. So starting with your head, with you, please introduce yourself to the audience.
As you might know, my name is Juliet Smart. I've been the head of data and analytics at Payprop for almost 5 years now. I hold a BCom Mathematical Sciences degree from Stellenbosch, as well as an honours degree in financial risk management. And I'm also a CFA charter holder. At Payprop, a big part of my job is analyzing information, so either for the business itself or for our clients. And I'm also the author of the quarterly Payprop rental index. The one that will be out soon, next week or so, will be my 19th one, actually.
Wow.
And today I'll be giving you a bit of an update on what we've seen in the rental market since the beginning of 2020.
Wonderful. Yes, it's great having you on the show. It's wonderful, and we look forward to seeing that data a little bit later. Sarah, if you could just introduce yourself, please, to the audience.
Hi, Neil, and all attendees joining us today. My name is Sarah Whitehead. As the head of sales at Payprop, I'm responsible for managing our national sales team and initiatives. I hold a Bachelor of Commerce degree in economics with international trade from the Northwest University, and I've built up more than 10 years of industry experience during my time at Payprop. Being at the coalface of our daily interactions with agencies, I've been privileged to see firsthand what a positive impact good agents have on the industry and the communities they're in. So today I'll be sharing a little bit more on some of those insights and advantages of using a good agent.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. Look forward, well, first of all, great having you on the show, but also look forward to the discussions with you a little bit later. Jan, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Good afternoon, Neil, and everybody else. Lovely to be here again today. Well, I'm Jan Dolfel. I'm the chief coffee drinker, maybe the chief executive officer of Payprop South Africa. And I've been involved in the wider real estate South African industry in different roles for the past 19 years. Although I hold certain professional designations, such as being an admitted attorney in the High Court, also being the key individual of a financial services provider accredited by the Financial Services Conduct Authority. I think more relevant here today is the fact that I'm also a master property practitioner, and I'm the principal of a duly registered estate agency. And that agency is Payprop, which doesn't conduct the business of a normal estate agency, but it is required to be registered as such, since Payprop is a payment processing agent in terms of the pending Property Practitioners Act and its draft regulations, which are allegedly about to be published in the near future. So, like many people in the audience, real estate agent, principal, master property practitioner. Thank you, Neil.
Wonderful. It's nice having you on board, Jan, and is the master coffee maker, but also leader of Payprop as well. Great having you. And last but not least, we've got Chantal. Chantal, do you want to introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Yes, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. So I am Chantal Nieuwendijk, and I am the Head of Client Services at Payprop South Africa. I joined Payprop in 2011, initially working in the sales and marketing team. And prior to Payprop, I worked in the real estate industry for about 4 years. During my journey at Payprop, I've gained valuable experience and exposure to all aspects of running a rental portfolio. And my experiences during this time gives me a unique insight into how rental portfolios can be optimized and kept safe. And that is what I will also be sharing a bit with you today.
Wonderful. Great having you on board, Chantal. In fact, great having all of you, the great panel today. Look forward to the discussion. So let's get into the questions. Let's get into the presentations and your heads. I mean, you mentioned you're doing your 19th PayProp rental index, and which is amazing, absolutely amazing. Tell us a little bit more about that PayProp rental index.
So Neil, PayProp has been publishing this PayProp rental index since 2012. So actually we've been informing and guiding the market with trends and data for almost 10 years, which is really fantastic. And the way that we put this together, I mean, because of our main transactional business, we have tons of information about rental payments and credit checks and arrears. To give you an idea of volumes, in 2020 alone, we processed just shy of 6 million payments. That's in and out.
Wow.
And over 100,000 properties are currently managed on PayProp in South Africa. So this massive amount of volume really helps us to identify trends and assess the overall health of the rental market.
Wow. So obviously we've just recently had the whole pandemic, and it's had a massive effect on the residential rental market. You know, many people lost their jobs. I'm sure that many tenants were affected by that. You know, maybe you can share with us, you know, some of that data, you know, what the payment and rental pricing trends you did see emerging from the data since lockdown was announced. And so generally just having a look at the effects of the pandemic on that residential market.
Definitely, Neil. So the first thing that we saw obviously was in rental growth. So that's something that we track in every single rental index. And you can see here at the beginning of 2020, just before lockdown, rental growth was around 3.2%. And then in the first quarter of lockdown, quarter 2 of 2020, it literally halved, and that went down to 0.2%. That's literally like 10 Rand growth in rental and the average rental amount year on year, which is basically nothing. So we've actually now seen 4 quarters of rent that's below 0.5% year on year, which is quite low. So if we look at why this is, I think there's factors on the demand side and the supply side that plays a role. On the demand side, I think affordability is the most important one. I mean, we all cringe a bit when you see the price of petrol going up. And because so many tenants lost their jobs or had to take a pay cut, had to dig into their savings, affordability is a really big concern. We know that unemployment is at very high levels. The price of food is escalating. So that's not going to change anytime soon. I think all consumers, not just tenants, are quite under pressure on the financial side. And that affordability obviously reduces the demand for higher priced properties, and that puts downward pressure on rental prices. And then what we have on the supply side, I think many agents can say that they've seen this. Many tenants have been buying houses, those who can afford to, with the very favorable interest rate currently. So they leave the rental market permanently. So that leads to a bit of oversupply, and also there's not that demand from them. Another thing that we've seen is during the initial stages of lockdown, when travel was so restricted, many landlords whose properties were on the short-term rental market, so listed on Airbnb and that type of thing, because they weren't getting any income on that end, they put those properties on the long-term rental market. So that's additional supply entering the market as well. And then last but not least, in some areas, development is ongoing forever. I mean, personally, I can't drive to work without seeing a new complex being built. So all of those factors lead to oversupply in the market, and that oversupply puts additional pressure on rental prices. So all of these factors that I've discussed aren't very elastic in the short term, which means they take a longer time to change, which just brings me to the conclusion that we won't see a dramatically positive change in the current rental market conditions as is.
The new data, when is that coming out? You mentioned next week. Has it been published already? Because it'll be interesting to see what the trends are that from when the pandemic through to now, and how that's changed, if it has changed at all.
The second very topical thing through the pandemic, what we discussed in the rental index, of course, is arrears. And because many tenants lost their income or lost part of their income, this was quite topical. So when we look at arrears, we look at two metrics. We look at the percentage of tenants in arrears overall. And secondly, we look at the average size of arrears compared to 1 month's rent. So on the screen in front of you, you'll see what happened with the percentage of tenants in arrears. So before lockdown, Q1 2020, you can see that almost 20% of tenants were in arrears. And many people think that this starting point is actually zero, but it's really not. 19.4% of tenants were in arrears just before lockdown. Then at the end of March, that announcement came. Everyone was in a bit of a shock. Everyone was worried about payments and stuff. And because of that, that percentage of tenants in arrears increased to almost 25%. So basically 1 in 4 tenants had arrears were in arrears in that first lockdown quarter. Then towards the end of May, it was announced that people could go back to work on the 1st of June. And from the third quarter, we can see this metric improving. So in the last quarter, in the rental index that's not out yet, you'll see that this percentage is currently 19.1%, which is actually just slightly better than it was before the pandemic started, which really is great news. Then if we look at the second metric and we look at the average arrears percentage relative to 1 month's rent. So to explain that in better terms, you can see here in the just before lockdown in the first quarter of 2020, this 78.5% means that a tenant who was in arrears, on average had an arrears rand amount equal to 78.5% of 1 month's rent. And you can also see this through the beginning of lockdown increasing, and it peaked at 104% in the third quarter of 2020. The reason why it rose between Q2 and Q3 is because once people went back to work, they were able to maybe pay off their arrears or the smaller arrears. And the guys who remained in arrears have it a bit more difficult. So remember, for this number to come down, for your arrears to become less and less, you have to pay your rent in full, and you also have to pay an additional amount towards your arrears. And that in the current economic situation is not the easiest for a lot of tenants to do. But good news, we are down to 82% of 1 month's rent, which is very much in line with where we started before lockdown. We do usually see a bit of a holiday arrears increase. So keep our eyes on what's happening, and we keep reporting that in our rental index. Speaking of, you can scan the QR code on your screen if you want to subscribe to the rental index, or if you want to download some of the older versions.
Very good data there, Yohet, and I think it's just amazing to see the impact that it's had. And very good data. I think great report, and I think very useful for property managers, landlords. Fantastic, really is good. And of course, estate agents themselves, anybody who's managing any portfolio. All right, so let's just move on to the risk-reward relationship between agents and tenants, and that's what I call Sarah. So Sarah, we've seen that good agents do more than just payments and inspections. Okay, they become more than that. They can greatly reduce, I think, landlords' risks, and certainly they can maximize return on investment. Very important for investors. I mean, maybe you can share, how they can add value, because I mean, we've seen the impact on tenants. Obviously, had a knock-on effect on landlords as well. So what did you see? What are the things that they can do that they can reduce the risk for landlords? So you want to share that with us, Sarah?
Oh, yes, Neil, thank you. I completely agree with your statements. You know, in an ever more complicated rental landscape, agents don't merely handle rents and do inspections anymore. In both payments and maintenance, their job has really evolved into more of a risk manager. So for a landlord, having a good agent can significantly reduce risk, as you mentioned, around tenant and property and investment management. You know, a good agent is worth every cent of the commission they charge. I might say even a little more. So I'd love to elaborate just on some of the advantages of using a good agent. Effective agencies have the benefit of economies of scale. They have systems in place, they know applicable laws, regulations to expedite rentals, whether they manage 5 or 500. As a landlord, using an agent saves them time in putting all of those processes in place, learning about the strict laws applicable to the landlord and the tenants, laws and regulations like PAPIA, the Rental Housing Act, and a myriad of others that apply to tenants. They are well known to agents, and therefore agents are in a better position to navigate these tricky situations. Managing agents further have expertise that they've gained over time that a landlord may not have. They understand tenant vetting, they know what to look for in a good tenant, and they're usually pretty good at spotting potential red flags. Agencies are also more likely to invest in technology that enable them to handle payments, invoicing, rent collection, legal contracts, inspections, maintenance, since that is their primary business. By comparison, the landlord tools available have very basic functionality. So using an agency for admin really saves the landlord a lot of time and potential headaches when they have to chase arrears, payments, collecting arrears, and all the ugly steps that move on after that doesn't go well. So it's almost a non-negotiable for agencies to use the best tech available, and the best tech should offer security, trackability around funds, more specifically to offer a segregated trust environment that tracks tenant, landlord, and agent monies on a granular level. For example, a tenant has the right to know how much interest the damage deposit earned per month, and for a landlord to calculate and report that on a monthly basis can be very frustrating and time-consuming. So the PropTech used by an agency will do that automatically for each separate tenant deposit, which is an immense time-saving and quite liberating advantage. The technology that an agent uses should improve their life as a landlord at no additional cost to the landlord. Payprop, for example, has an owner app that landlords can download to get full visibility on payment information for all of their properties in real time. They can also download statements directly from that app within seconds. So having that sort of accurate information and automated statements on hand can save a landlord a ton of time when doing their taxes. And then I suppose with the right PropTech, agents benefit too from their relationship with landlords. Agencies are starting to realize to fulfill their ever-evolving role of a risk manager, they should use the right tools and technology to distinguish themselves from their competition. Most importantly, they should have technology that automates the burdensome payments and enables better risk management. Such tools will perfectly position an agent to help landlords manage their risk while increasing their ROI by placing better tenants, managing arrears better, and taking care of maintenance of the property on behalf of the landlord in a safe and transparent manner. Know what technologies are available and what it enables you to do. And remember, as with all truly distinguishing purchases like cars, steaks, whiskey, and watches, the cheapest tech is never the best one. So for landlords, paying an agency to manage their rental properties not only reduces risk, but results in significant time savings as well. Time that can be used to spend on what matters most. Thanks, Neil. Oh, sorry, Neil, you're on mute.
Yes, I know. It happens from time to time, you know. We've got the little button, you've got to click the little knoppy on the left bottom one over there. And sometimes we fail to do that, but I'm back on, I'm back live. So thanks very much for that, Sarah. That was great insights and some very useful information for both agents and landlords. Thank you very much. So yeah, and I think first of all, let's look at you know, what's actually happening sort of in the previously disadvantaged areas. I think we're seeing more smaller agencies and in the historically disadvantaged area. And how can they use technology to go from strength to strength?
Thank you, Neil. It's a good question and good observation. I think we've seen phenomenal growth in quite a number of our clients' rental portfolios from all walks of life, but we specifically see many new opportunities in the previously underserviced areas, such as Soweto, the Cape Flats, etc. And I'll discuss a little more, I think, what's happening behind the scenes. So many property rental agents, specifically the new entrants to the formal market, have been struggling with the heavy ongoing burden of payment administration, payment reconciliation, collections, and of course, strict industry regulations, some of which are about to change any time now. So new entrants to the rental arena don't have to suffer much longer. The right tools will help them to automate important parts of their business so that they can actually focus on the important things like their training, their business growth, taking care of customer services, and simply getting their lives back. So for example, here, and I'm going to ask, if possible, if you could insert the slide here for me. If we take Talker Properties in our Gauteng, for example, and your attendees are welcome to follow this QR code or to click on the link in the chat box. But Talker Properties of Gauteng started out in sales only, and they avoided rentals for exactly the reasons that I've just mentioned, the barriers to entry, the challenges. But today, as a Payprop-powered estate agency, Talker Properties is running a thriving rental business with multiple branches without the administrative and bookkeeping challenges typically associated with manual rent payment administration. So I think people should feel free to read the case study on Talker Properties, and then we've got many stories, but I think this is a good example of what can be done in a previously disadvantaged environment. But to make the job even easier for the new market entrants in the historically disadvantaged areas, Neil, the laws are changing. The current Estate Agency Affairs Act requires property practitioners, estate agents, to manage a trust account that enables them to separate client and business funds and then to have it audited. But when the new Property Practitioners Act comes into effect, and that will be once the property practitioner regulations are finalized, then an agency can apply for exemption from keeping these trust accounts and from having it audited. There are a few conditions, a few procedures need to be followed, but an agency can apply to be exempted and to audit his trust accounts if he uses an approved payment processing agent like Payprop, which is defined in the new regulations. So Payprop is seeing more and more smaller agencies, previously informal agencies in the historically disadvantaged areas coming to the fore, entering the formal compliant real estate sector, and that to us is great to see. We advise all new entrants to use the powerful yet affordable PropTech available to them, as that will see them grow from strength to strength with all these new changes coming in our regulatory space. You know, as the Property Practitioners Act states, Neil, the property market is a national asset that restores the dignity of all South Africans through the basic constitutional right of ownership of immovable property. And Payprop is proud to assist newcomers to the real estate industry and to redress the imbalances of the past by providing a state-of-the-art payment processing platform with unlimited training, ongoing support, free of charge. And then there are a variety of value-adding services at variable percentage service fees that are affordable to all sectors of society. So there's definitely more and more entrants coming into the more formal sector now.
That's encouraging. That's really encouraging. Thanks for sharing that, Jan. So Jan, just before, can you maybe just elaborate this? I mean, also on the whole COVID thing, and we saw your hit share, you know, a little bit about that in your data. I mean, we know it's had a massive effect and a massive impact on all people and businesses. And but surely there's a silver lining somewhere. I mean, do you see any opportunities, or did you see opportunities emerge during the last 18 months, specifically for rental agents?
Yes, Neil. You know, with COVID-19 and an ongoing economic slump, residential property rentals still offer an exciting and untapped opportunity, once again, through all demographics and geographics. However, it is up to the agent or the agency to take a few clever decisions. You know, with the marginal growth that we've seen in the monthly rent, you has alluded to that, The monthly rent, the amount by which the monthly rent goes up is well below inflation. It is almost at zero. And then, of course, there's an oversupply of rental stock, and that you will see in the Payprop rental index of Q3. Landlords and tenants in all market segments, they need capable agencies with the right tools, skills, and proven track records to manage their rental investments and tenancies. And like I've said when I answered your earlier question, we've seen phenomenal growth rate. And Payprop has actually, during this lockdown period, Payprop South Africa has had 3 all-time record highs in terms of processing volumes. So it is a fact that there are so many opportunities, and our clients who focused on their rental businesses have grown from strength to strength. So Payprop, in addition to all the great admin functionality, payment processing capabilities, business continuation and cybercrime assurance, etc., Payprop provides estate agencies with a special kind of account that complies with all the current and the new trust account regulations out of the box. So once Payprop has taken care of an agency's trust environment compliance, and it also takes care of monthly admin, and that necessitates minimal time and effort for the estate agent. So once invoiced, tenants simply pay monthly rent into an agent's Payprop trust account, and then within a couple of clicks, Payprop automatically identifies the right tenant. He matches the payment to the right property, pays out to the right beneficiaries, such as service providers. It pays the agent's commission, it pays, of course, the landlord. And because Payprop is integrated with the banking system, agents' payments are always sent to the right beneficiaries. The account totals are always live. It's always in real time. It's always 100% accurate. So estate agents, specifically now in COVID, don't have to do all the accounting, tracing of funds, working through bank statements, meeting with people, set up individual payments, etc. We do all of that for them, and that saves agents a lot of time. And the agents who have really embraced that have grown phenomenally. So Payprop enables its clients to focus on business during business hours and in their private time, on their family life, sports, and hobbies. So if they embrace tech, if they use a proper service provider, agencies can get their life back and grow their businesses like we have seen, Neil.
Fantastic. So Chantal, you're on the back end of all this stuff. So you're actually dealing there, you're actually in the field, you're talking to the agents, you're talking to the clients. So you're actually getting all this stuff firsthand. So maybe you just want to share with the audience, how the pandemic, and we've heard from your head, we've heard from Jan, how the pandemic forced many people to also reconsider their priorities. How do you run your rental business without sacrificing your whole life? Because we've got to make this thing a lot easier. You want to share?
Yes, absolutely. Sure. I just want to start with sure, because I think it's so easy to be swallowed up by the administration of running a rental business. And fast and accurate payments to us is an important part of a residential rental agency's business. And unfortunately, it is a significant administrative burden. And in addition to that, there's a big reputational risk if you do it wrong. So how do you get it right without sacrificing your whole life or appointing a massive team of people? So we believe that with the right tools, payments can go from taking hours, especially at month end, to days each month, depending on the size of your portfolio, to a couple of minutes. So accurate and fast. Payprop is at the moment the South African market leader in the residential rental payment sector, thanks to advanced property technologies based on bank integration and automation, like Jan has also mentioned. There are two things these two things are what enables our clients to run their business like clockwork. So as a result, thousands of agencies in South Africa, the UK, Canada, and the US trust Payprop to power their payments. So Payprop has banking relationships with leading banks in all the countries where it does business, so including ABSA in South Africa, NatWest in the UK, CIBC in Canada, Credit Suisse in Switzerland, and Bank of America in the US. So our real-time links to these banks means your trust account values are based on actual bank totals and do not have to be entered by humans, wasting time tying up your resources and exposing, and that is the important part, exposing your agency to error of wrongdoing. So our clients across the world have what other agencies only dream of: same day payments to landlords and third parties, automated invoicing and arrears reminders before non-payment becomes a problem, automated statements and client reports, and automated trust account reconciliation that is always 100% accurate, and it's in real time with a permanent audit log that tells the agent who did what and when on the system in real time forever. Money is simply paid. So this is something that Jan also mentioned now, but that's very important. Money is simply paid by the tenant into the agency's Payprop Power Trust account, automatically identified as coming from that particular tenant and matched to the right property and purpose. Amounts owed on the accounts are automatically calculated against over or underpayments and paid out to the right beneficiary in the right order as set up by the agency. So this only needs to be done once, and then you don't have to touch those payments again. So in just a couple of clicks, taking no more than 5 minutes, all these collections, accounting, and banking processes are taken care of for your entire portfolio, freeing up your time, money, and the agency to do more. So helping them grow by freeing up your time. So COVID has shown us that digitizing your business processes is the way to go, and it gives you time to focus on people, your teams, your customers, and your loved ones. Any business, large or small, can be run from anywhere in the world with an internet connection on any device. Work is no longer a place, but a set of unique processes completed in the easiest way possible. Data is no longer a physical vault, but an ultra-secure digital asset. Security is no longer something that depends on someone's skills or integrity, but a real-time audited activity. And then privacy is no longer an afterthought, but a right. It is the future of property, and it runs like clockwork. Automated, digital, instant, private, secure, and up to the minute. Real-time real estate.
Excellent. Thanks, Chantal. So the questions are starting to fly in. So I encourage you all to submit your questions there at the bottom of the Q&A box. And please just identify who you'd like the question for. If we don't, we'll just put it through to the panel. Thank you, panel. I think there was some great insights over there. People have been asking, will there be a recording? Yes, there will be a recording. We promise you. We know that they get viewed over and over again. So don't worry if you do have to run out or whatever it may be. The recording will be available for you to watch on demand. Very popular. We're getting good views on that. And you'd also be able to get it via Payprop as well. So just getting into some of the questions. So at the bottom right over there, and I'm actually going to, Chantal, while you were just speaking, a question came flying through for you over there. So I'm just going to ask you, because just so that you finish off your presentation, maybe it adds on to the tail of it. And it says, Chantal, does the automation consist of debit orders, or does the tenant pay EFT?
Oh, it's a lovely question. Love it. So you have the ability with Payprop. Your tenant has a different ways to pay. So yes, you can collect rent via debit order, but we also have other methods of payment as well. So something that's not always known is the pay at functionality. So some tenants can even go to ShopRite or Selected Checkers or Spar and go to the teller and deposit the rent there. So debit order, normal cash payments, you go to ABSA and you deposit your money there. Pay at transactions, also available on Payprop. And then the newest functionality and payment method that we added recently is through Ozo. So our tenants have a tenant portal, which they log into. They get all the invoices on there. They see what the deposit values are or what the arrears are. And then from the portal, they have the functionality to also pay. And that transaction is facilitated with OZO. And then normal EFT, which I think most people are very familiar with. So yes, to answer your question, definitely debit orders, but not just only debit orders. We've got an array of different payment methods for the tenants to use.
I think that's probably quite important to offer that there's multiple options. I mean, we're seeing, some properties in future, we might see Bitcoin, we might see NFTs, non-fungible tokens, and transactions done that way. And I can tell you now, a lot of those things are not far away. So thank you for sharing that, Chantal. And the questions are coming in hard and fast, which is great for the team. I think this one is for Sarah. Sarah, you must tell me whether it is the right one, but I heard about Payprop deposit guarantee. How does it work and how does it benefit landlords? Would you feel comfortable answering that, Sarah?
I see my colleague Juliet is already unmuted. That's more in her space.
Okay. So she can also contribute. You want? Okay. So Juliet, is that your baby?
Yes, Neil. So deposit guarantee is a product that we offered for a couple of years, and that's unfortunately been discontinued in 2019.
Okay. All right. So it doesn't exist. It's gone. It's disappeared since 2019. That's the long and short answer. Okay, excellent. There's a comment from Besiswa. Okay, a comment from our side is that a good relationships with the tenants is also crucial in renting the property, as the tenant will be more transparent and honest in advance if they are to experience difficulties in paying the rental, and provide in the proposed plan in paying the amount in arrears. Who wants to maybe just comment or add an extension to that? Sarah, I can see you put your hand up there very quickly.
Can I bounce it back to Jan? I saw him
of course.
Put his hand up. But I do agree.
It's all good opinion. It's all good.
But I do agree, Busiswe, you are 100% good with that observation, because I think I focused very much on landlords when I spoke about what makes a good agent, and definitely building relationships with open and honest communication between yourself and your tenants is so important. It creates a bit of mutual respect. And if you understand the tenants' needs and challenges and aim to keep them happy within limits, you'll keep the relationship positive and hopefully avoid headaches.
Okay, good. Jan, did you want to add to that, or you're happy with Sarah's response?
No, I think it's a very good response, and I think it's a very good comment by Mr. Siwa. Fact of the matter is, now, even more importantly than ever before, it's time for Ubuntu. It's time for people to talk to one another, and then very importantly, to reduce the agreements to writing so that we can follow through. But we have seen how the processing volumes dipped at the initial stages of the COVID. We had 2 exceptionally bad months. People were uncertain. People only paid half their rent. I didn't know what's ahead. And we saw how that recovered, and we saw how credit notes were passed and new invoices and payment arrangements. So yes, I think it is important to have good relationships with all parties, between landlord, tenant, and the agent, as it is still a relationship business. And that is why a company like Payprop enables estate agents. We don't disrupt estate agents. We want agents to continue doing what they've been doing for more than 50 years in South Africa.
Okay, so an enable is the thing. So you're watching Real-Time Real Estate, New Directions in Residential Rental Success, sponsored by Payprop. We've got a question here for you, Johet. Okay, on the data analytics side, how far down can Payprop drill on the data that is more detailed but does not lose out on the holistic perspective? The idea is to have less sticky metrics. Your comments?
Yeah, so on the analytical side and the rental index, we usually look at a provincial level, because our data is a byproduct of our main business, like I've said before. So we, from a collective point of view, prefer to look at provinces. Otherwise, it might become a bit skewed, depending on where we have clients and that type of thing. Yeah, hope that answers the question.
No. Well, that's fine. So, Jan, it's actually on the tail end of your, and I think you might have actually answered this question already, but maybe you can still comment on it. Do you think residential rentals are an emerging golden market opportunity? And I think you touched on that. I don't know if you want to add anything more onto that in particular.
Absolutely. I think the short answer is yes. We've been operating in South Africa for 17 years, and our growth rate is still phenomenal. We grow year on year. Sarah and the team onboards new clients. We see organic growth in current residential books. We see many new entrants to the market. So yes, I think there's a window opportunity. That window has been open for quite some time, and I think those people who committed to the opportunities have been receiving the dividends, and that opportunity is not over. We've got significant opportunities left, yes.
Fantastic. And Jan, another one that's coming away from Beatrice. Can the same propositions supplied for real estate agents be supplied to property investors that wish to manage their tenants on their own?
Neil, I see Beatrice's question is pretty similar to Miguel Martins' question. In fact, of the matter, Payprop is not a competitor to estate agents. It is an enabler of estate agents. So in South Africa alone, we have more than 1,300 active accounts run by real estate agents and property managers. So we support and enable property managers and estate agents. We do not work with landlords directly. That would mean, firstly, I compete with my own clients, which is something I don't want to do. And then on the other hand, when we consider the definition of a real estate agency, and I've mentioned the fact that we're a regulated estate agency and we are members of the Payments Association of South Africa, etc., which means that we run one single trust account environment, and all our accounts were set up, were opened in terms of the Estate Agency Affairs Act, and now already comply with the relevant sections, like, for example, Section 454 of the New Property Practitioners Act. So we run one entire big trust environment that is specific to estate agents, and I cannot, even if I wanted to, I cannot bring a landlord or a privately owned property into my trust environment, as I'm responsible for more than 1,300 audits. And the minute that I bring someone on board who is not an estate agency or a property manager, my numbers won't add up. So since we automate all these thousands of agencies, businesses, and since we reconcile every single cent in our entire on our entire platform daily to the last cent, it's only monies of estate agencies or monies that estate agencies and property managers are responsible for. So no, I don't compete with my clients. And secondly, I cannot bring private money into my trust environment.
Okay, great. Well put. That's very clear. It's a general question, and I'm not sure who would like to have a crack. Can I use Payprop for short-term rental like holiday letting with the Airbnbs? Who would like to have a crack at that one?
I'll put my hand up.
Yes, Chantal, it's all over to you.
So the answer is yes. So the short answer is absolutely. You are able to manage your short term on Payprop quite easily. And it works exactly the same as your long-term letting. You invoice your tenant, they have access to the tenant portal. You can keep the short-term deposit within the Section 322 environment for them when they move out to give it back to them. And your owner as well would be up to date with what is happening in the short-term rental that you are administering via the owner app that they have access to. So yes, it's very easy, very user-friendly to invoice those short-term and would easily book by using Payprop.
Fantastic, great. Another general question from Elise. Is it easy to export data from Payprop? For example, many clients use Expello, that's the eviction attorneys, and they need to give information. Who would like to have a go at that one? Sarah, or go ahead?
Okay,
okay, Chantal, it's all Chantal. Go for it, Chantal.
Let's go. You want to start?
No, I just want to say that this is the perfect question for Chantal.
Well, there we go, Chantal.
So the answer is yes. Data is easily exported out of Payprop, but no, you don't need to. Payprop has the ability for you to send letters of demands, for example, directly from the facility. So you don't even have to export any data. You can even chase your arrears by just being inside of Payprop. You can even submit your data to the credit bureau without leaving Payprop. So yes, you are able to export data, but it really won't be necessary because you can do just those 3 things and more inside of Payprop without having any other subscriptions. So yes, but no.
Okay, so Chantal, I think this one's for you as well. For the real estate agent, can they only apply these options via self-credit prepaid option on contracts?
Ask that question again, please.
So for the real estate agent, can they only apply the options, okay, which I would assume of the via self-credit prepaid option on contracts?
Jan?
I expect the question pertains to payment options.
Yes,
so
that's correct.
There are no special arrangements. Any consumer can use multiple options, like Chantal has explained: EFT, instant EFT, cash deposit, pay at a outlet, etc. So it's nothing. So as long as you've got a valid lease agreement and you've got a property manager or a estate agency fidelity fund certificate, your consumers can pay basically on all legal payment methods in South Africa, and we can facilitate that. So the agent does not have to introduce any fancy little gadget or thing in order to process payments.
Okay, all right, excellent. Okay, it's another general question. And with the advent of new prop tech companies incentivizing tenants for paying on time, offering vouchers, what is Payprop's view on this, if any?
I'll take a stab at this one. Jan, have I jumped the gun
again?
Sarah.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose it's debatable. I'm all for rewards. I love my clicks, points, and my e-bucks. But contractually, the rent is due on the agreed upon date. And of the lease agreement, so I suppose the benefits of paying your rent to the credit record.
Okay. All right, that's one way of putting it. I don't know if there's further comment, Jan. It looks like you want to also add to that.
Maybe to add to that, so we're a prop tech, a fintech company that enables estate agencies to get their lives back. We do lots of work for them, but at the end of the day, it is still the estate agent, estate agency, whose role and function it is to collect the rentals. So if you have a prop tech company that actually replaces the estate agent, it could make sense to run some kind of an incentive program that is aimed at the consumer. So since I'm enabling the estate agent to render a better service, and in our particular case, it would be up to our client, in other words, the agency or the property manager, to incentivize his client, because at the end of the day, with the payment platform that attends to all the support services, enabling the agent, but it's still the agent's duty. We don't replace the agent like some prop tech companies do. So we're not a disruptor, we're an enabler, wherefore if there are incentives to be paid, it would be for my clients.
Excellent. Okay, so nicely put there. I think this is a question for your head. And it's now that we're facing an increasing interest rate cycle, what is Payprop's view on how it is going to impact the rental market? Because I'm sure you've got a little bit of history that you can look back on as well. You had to see, we've just seen a 0.25% repo price increase. What has that impact been? Has it affected the market?
So Neil, historically, there isn't really a correlation between rental growth rates and the repo rate. But off the top of my head, if I can make an educated guess, to me, it feels like it's a very case-by-case basis, right? So someone who's a tenant doesn't necessarily have a bond payment. So if you look at all your debt, that increase in interest rate affects your bond payment the most, I would say. So other than that, it really is depending on the amount of debt that you have. Other than that, it really is just a further pressure on that affordability factor that I spoke about earlier.
Okay, great. And then there's a comment from Devano. He says, very helpful indeed. Thank you. Hopefully, as the business grows, we can start getting cities, towns as the data populations grow. Data definitely helps inform decisions and is often overlooked. From what I've seen as a landlord, really enjoying reading the feedback from the periodical rental industry. So I think well done to you. That's kudos to you there for your report there, your hit. So we've got 2 more questions, and then I'm going to get around to the panelists to give their closing thoughts. The one is, can we manage more than one office on one account? Who wants to do that, Chantal or Sarah?
Absolutely, you can. Without a doubt, you are able to run multiple branches on one Payprop account with multiple users. You can segregate duties within one account, so it's easily manageable to have one account with multiple branches, multiple users, without disrupting your business, even in the least.
Excellent. Okay, last question, and then we're going to get around to the panel for the final wrap before we go. And in terms of rental, let's look at return. Just a reminder, the CPD points, don't forget about that. You will get the recording. Yes, you will. Questions, I think we managed to deal with most of them in this particular session over here. So last question, general, and then we'll get around to everybody with their closing and parting shots. In terms of return to rental growth, what lead indicators in an area or suburb should an investor look for? So it seems like an investor-related question. It sounds like a little bit of in your sort of department there. But if somebody else has a comment, you're welcome to do so.
Yeah, Neil, it is a little bit in my department, but I'll also happily open the it's a difficult question to answer. It really depends on where you are buying. So back to the supply factors that we discussed earlier.
Yeah,
I would say,
let's call the curveball question there. It's it's like some that the people just throw out there because they're trying to get advice. You see, that's what people are looking for.
If there is a lot of new development, the chances are that there will be an oversupply in the market, right? Okay. If there is, I don't know, something that you could look at on portals, for example, how many properties are listed? What price are they listed at? So if you want to look at where to invest, don't forget that you also need to look at what is the demand at price level. Where's the highest demand? And then maybe invest according to that guideline.
I think that's good advice from your side there, Yet. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go around to the team and we're going to say, and I've got a lot of comments here. People have really enjoyed the session and the discussion. So kudos to each and every single one of you. So maybe we're going to do a round table, starting with you, Chantal, your closing thoughts, your parting shots, then Sarah, then your hit, and then finally Jan. Give us your final parting shots that people can take away and leave and say, yes, Payprop makes sense to me.
Thank you, Neil. So my parting thought is that when it goes wrong, it goes wrong. It goes wrong properly. So make sure that you've got the right systems in place to help you not only not be swallowed up by the administrative burden of running a book, but making sure that you are safe, because this is essentially your livelihood. So make sure that you've got systems and processes and technology behind you that gives you that peace of mind, because when it goes wrong beautifully. And that's my parting thought.
I think it's a wonderful way of putting it. And Sarah, would you give us your parting shots there, please?
Yeah, sure, Neil, thanks. I suppose I'd like to reiterate that when we talk about good prop tech and automation, we talk about enabling people. You know, oftentimes when we talk about automation, it conjures up a mental picture of robots and machines replacing human resources. But no, people are the cornerstone of every real estate business. And a good agent, again, what I mentioned earlier, is worth every cent of the commission they charge.
Wonderful. Great stuff. Okay, so you hit your final thoughts, your parting shots for the audience out there.
Yes, Neil, I think my final thought is just around property as an investment. Having a rental property, you own an asset class. So like bonds and stocks and whatever, every asset class has its own risks. A slow rental market is one of those risks. Having a vacant property is one of those risks. And I think people tend to stay into, wow, my rent isn't going up. But rental income isn't your only income on a rental property. So treat it as the asset class it is. Keep it in mind. Make sure that you diversify your investments if you can. But yeah, remember that property is an asset class with its own inherent risks.
Great stuff. Thank you for that, your hits. And Jan, please give us your final parting shots. You last but not least, you are the thorn amongst the roses over here today. So, but you get the last say, Jan.
I'm a chief coffee drinker too. So I'm going to where your head has stopped, and I sense that we have landlords in the audience, private investors. So my last thoughts are aimed at both landlords and then estate agents. And that is, I agree with you, real estate is an excellent investment commodity. And considering the returns on the yields and what the interest rates are going to do, what the effects are going to be, pretty much depends on what is the reason why you are a property investor. And my advice is, do you invest in property for the sake of your children so that they can go to university and have accommodation? Or do you see this as a short-term gain? You're looking for capital growth. Then you're typically going into new developments and you speculate. You swing that property for 5 years, excellent capital growth, not necessarily good rental yield. Then on the other hand, if it's part of your retirement strategy, you want to go to more old established areas with excellent amenities, this, that, and the other. And it is a long-term thing, and rental, the monthly yield is important to you, not necessarily the capital growth. So whenever somebody talks to you about property investment, you must firstly understand the why. Why are you investing? Because it changes the answer completely. So real estate is an excellent investment commodity, but choosing the right property, location, purchase price, demand, yield, amenities, gearing, whatever the case might be, but you need to understand why you are investing first. So, and then for the estate agents, since you are managing risk, since you are managing other people's money, since it is a highly regulated environment, whether it be through the Property Practitioners Act, whether it be the new or the old Estate Agency Affairs Act, the Rental Housing Act, the Financial Intelligence Center Act, you are managing risk. Make sure that you mitigate those risks and that you can sleep at night. Get your life back and get us to assist you by doing those tedious tasks for you. Thank you, Neil, and that's me.
Wonderful. So Jan Dalbel, CEO of Payprops South Africa, Sarah Whitehead, Head of Sales, Payprops South Africa, Chantal Nivendijk, Head of Client Services of Payprops South Africa, and your Johet Smuts, Head of Data Analytics. So thank you all for your contribution today. I think it has been an absolutely awesome discussion. It's great insights. I think people have walked away here with some real good advice, real good info. So to you, the audience, also thank you for hanging around and following us all the time. There will be a recording. So I would like to end off with an inspirational quote from Kathy Fecker of Real Wealth. She says, the bottom line, investing in real estate is smart because property is tangible. People always have and always will need shelter. And this means it is very unlikely that our need for shelter, that is buying or renting homes, will ever go away. So that brings me to our conclusion of our investment webinar for today. I'd like to thank our expert Payprop advisors and for your valuable contribution today, and to Payprop for being our sponsors for today. And I encourage you all to reach out and engage with Jan, Johet, Sarah, and Chantal at Payprop if you've got any queries directly. And once again, reminder to those attendees who had to leave early, missed the live version of the conference, we will personally email you a link of the recording. So and you can watch that on demand. And so we've only got one more webinar. It's next Thursday, and it's going to also be at 12 o'clock. And the topic is the metaverse, and the future of the internet is here. And we've got a very interesting presenter, and we've heard all about Mark Zuckerberg talking about the metaverse. We're going to introduce it to you, and as a property tool that is going to be unbelievable. So future webinars won't be on Zoom. They will be in the metaverse. And if you come along next week, you'll know what we're talking about. Everybody gets their own avatar. So I encourage you all to be there. It's a free event. You can see how it's going to impact the real estate industry in the future and how you can benefit, more importantly. And to book, you just click on the link below. We will send you links. So thank you all once again for joining us, and to the panels from Payprop. It's been a wonderful discussion. Stay safe and successful investing, and especially investing in the best asset there is, and that is investing in yourself. So this is Neil Peterson of Real Estate Investors signing out.